The Haunting of Hollow Street. Hollow Street was a name that sent shivers down the spines of everyone in the town of Everwood. It was a street that was spoken of in hushed tones, a street that was avoided at all costs, especially on Halloween night. For as long as anyone could remember, Hollow Street had been cursed. Every Halloween, children would go missing, their last known location being Hollow Street. Despite numerous investigations, no trace of them was ever found. I had grown up hearing the tales of Hollow Street. My grandmother would often tell me stories of her childhood, of friends who had dared to trick-or-treat on Hollow Street and had never returned. As a child, I had always been both fascinated and terrified by these tales. But as I grew older, my skepticism grew. I dismissed the stories as mere urban legends, tales meant to scare children into obedience. But this Halloween was different. My curiosity had gotten the better of me, and I decided to investigate Hollow Street for myself. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of bravado, I set out, determined to uncover the truth. As I approached Hollow Street, a sense of unease settled over me. The street was eerily quiet, the houses lining it old and decrepit. The windows were boarded up, and the gardens were overgrown with weeds. It was as if time had forgotten this place. I began to explore, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The first few houses were empty, their interiors covered in dust and cobwebs. But as I ventured further down the street, I began to hear noises, soft whispers, the creaking of floorboards, the distant sound of laughter. I followed the sounds, leading me to a house at the very end of the street. It was larger than the others, its facade grand and imposing. The front door was slightly ajar, and as I pushed it open, I was greeted by a sight that took my breath away. The interior of the house was pristine, as if it had been frozen in time. The furniture was covered in white sheets, and the walls were adorned with portraits of people, their eyes following me as I moved. But it was the center of the room that drew my attention. A large table was set, candles lit, casting a warm glow. And around the table sat children, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. They were dressed in old-fashioned clothing, and in front of each of them was a plate of candy. I approached the table, my heart racing. The children did not acknowledge my presence, their gazes fixed on the candy in front of them. I reached out, touching one of the children on the shoulder. He turned to look at me, his eyes filled with sadness. "Who are you?" I asked. "We are the lost children of Hollow Street," he replied. "Every Halloween, we are lured here, trapped by the candy." I looked at the candy, realizing the truth. It was cursed, drawing children to Hollow Street, trapping them in this house for eternity. I had to break the curse. I began to search the house, looking for clues. In the basement, I found a book, its pages yellowed with age. It detailed the history of Hollow Street, of a witch who had been wronged by the townsfolk and had cursed the street in revenge. The book also contained a way to break the curse, a ritual that had to be performed on Halloween night. I gathered the necessary ingredients, determined to free the children. As the clock struck midnight, I began the ritual. The children gathered around me, their voices joining mine as we chanted the words. The candles flickered, the wind howled, and the ground shook. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the curse was broken. The children, their faces now filled with color, smiled at me, gratitude in their eyes. One by one, they vanished, their spirits finally free. I left Hollow Street, the weight of the curse lifted. The street was no longer feared, its dark history a thing of the past. But every Halloween, as the moon casts its glow on Everwood, I'm reminded of the haunting of Hollow Street, of the lost children, and of the night when I faced the darkness and emerged victorious.